This is the second part to the video on shamanic initiation and apprenticeship. So coming back to traditional shamanic apprenticeship, there are, you could say, two main modes. There might be more, but just to make it simple. And one is spirit initiation. So the spirits come and they will take the would-be shaman apprentice, usually because there is some ancestral knowledge of that kind and propensity to work with the shamanic mindset and especially my shamanic skills. It might be nowadays that some spirits are actually sending an illness to create shamans outside of those shamanic family traditions, because there's a great need in the world. But the initiation is still an extremely difficult one. It's not to be really fantasized, or it can be fantasized, but it's not really to be idealized. It's a very difficult process. So this is a spirit initiation, as I was mentioning, in the Zulu traditions, in some Siberian traditions, in Nepalese tradition, in Mongolian traditions, etc. And then there are, in many cases, the shaman, would-be shaman or shamanic person, healer, will experience this for quite a while, and then his symptoms will be assessed and recognized, or assessed by the community, identified, and then assessed and confirmed by a shaman person. And then usually he undergoes an initiation, an apprenticeship, to help him stabilize the state and contact his own spirit allies who might have presented themselves also, but are not recognized yet. This might still be an extremely difficult process, finding balance, and even the apprenticeship process might be a very difficult one with very difficult steps. Then there's another mode which is belongs to many a few shamanistic traditions and many animistic traditions, which is really learning with a healer, usually with a deep desire to learn, usually because you've experienced some suffering. It makes sense, and usually you will be tested to see if this is because you really want to learn to heal people, because in a way you are very sensitive to the suffering of others, and your dedication and your abnegation, your willingness to sacrifice long hours, because this is going to be the work you're going to be doing. Long hours, sometimes night and day, for other people. You might be doing resting and people will come and get you. Fetch you, sorry, different thing, they might come and get you. To say, well, this person is sick and you have to travel along for a long time, and you might have to work into the night, etc., etc. And you realize after a while you don't really own your own time in a lot of cases. So this will be tested by the mature healer, and if your desire is really sincere, then he will take you on an apprenticeship. I have to mention also, yes, also one way is you've undergone an illness and you are healed by that shaman, usually not as radical and on all levels an illness, as I mentioned, for shamanic initiation, for example, by spirit initiation, but still a profound illness, whether it's physical, psychological or both. At least serious enough that you have to be healed by a shamanic person, and then that might lead fairly fluidly into initiation. So those are the modes, and that process is usually a more progressive one, in the sense that when you are initiated by spirits, you just dive into, you could say, the spirit world in its very dark aspects also, and you have to learn to swim, basically. It's the same with the progressive initiation, but it's more progressive, and it's for the healer to actually assess your master healer, to assess, your ability to handle those things, and then get on with the next step, where you are in the same way undergoing a process of deconstruction. It might not be as radical, and even in the end it might not be as radical. It might be, depending on your personality, and you could say what you're meant to do with this, but it's still a process of deconstruction. So you will go through a period of extreme chaos. You will end up in times when you don't really know who you are, and you will have to let go of many identities, and also some form of contraction, avidity, desire for power for itself, etc., etc. Some people will say, well, I know some shamanistic person, they are not that aware of dissolving avidity or desire for power, etc. It's true. There are different levels of initiation in this. I'm just saying there is a deconstruction to some level. This is also going to bring you, whether with an apprenticeship, with a longer and more progressive and less radical apprenticeship with a master healer, or through initiation with a spirit, it is going to bring you in contact with healing and healer allies that will bring you skill, power, and an extremely different important thing. This power is there, but it's not really for your use. So there is no shaman or shamanistic person without his spirits. So if you start thinking, I'm the only one doing this, in many cases you will break that relationship to some more or less serious extent. I have to realize it. For example, in my beginning days, when I was working on a certain really difficult, very beginning days, I was working on a very difficult case, and I started putting some force into things and thinking, this is really problematic, I've got to do something. After a while, I realized something's going on, and you could say I turned around and I thought, I'm alone. And they were, the spirit allies I had at the time, some of which I still have, were laughing in a way, saying, well, yes, you're alone, so are you finished now? And I laughed, and this was, and they said, well, do this, which was a completely different thing to my force for trying to solve this, problem for this person, from this unacceptable problem. They said, no, sing for this spirit's heart, which was really perturbating, which was disrupting this person's experience of life. And they said, sing for its heart, and don't try to chase it away. And I did that, and this opened a huge opening in this healing, and actually was my first great teaching of this is not a work done alone. If your personality takes over, because here I was identified to something, then the allies are not there, or they might be, but they'll teach you. Last thing, the apprenticeship period and the deconstruction, in many cases, does not stop after the initiatory period. You are still undergoing shamanic initiation. You are constantly questioned. You are constantly transformed. You are, in many cases, constantly faced with your shadow aspects and your wounds. It's not by chance that the shaman is often described as a wounded healer. He keeps healing himself, and this keeps you grounded, and also gives you sensitivity and to other people's suffering. So there's this paradox also. Your skill and power, you could say, for the use of this is growing, but you're also kept grounded by learning, and in many cases also letting go of identities along the way. So this is also, you have to consider, if you're going on a real shamanic initiation, this is also challenging journey. Still a very beautiful journey, and if you are on that path, I wish you the best. And if you are really interested in those traditions, you can learn with very devoted people, and you can also benefit from some shamanistic aspects in your life extremely greatly. Some of them I've mentioned in my videos about creating relationship with nature. So I think this is it. I hope this is helpful, and I wish you very good practice. Blessings.